We travel out to Guyana 4 or 5 times a year to keep in touch with our main suppliers. The timber industry it's still a lot about relationships, and we work hard to maintain very active relationships with our supply chain. And we travel into the forest as much as we can to see the operations, to meet the guys doing the work on the ground, and to get a gauge on how the forests are being worked. Sustainability is at the heart of the Guyanese forest systems, and the practice applied throughout the country is something called reduced impact logging. It's almost like a common sense approach to managing tropical forests, in that you're registering that you want to keep the forest in as good a condition as you can, so any logging operations you do are managed to minimise adverse effect on the standing forest that is left. So, as well as checks from the rangers from the Guyanese Forestry Commission, we also come out to the forestry concessions that our suppliers operate to check all the standards are being met. Hi, I'm Roderick Aitken of Gilmour and Aitken. We've been operating in Guyana over 45 years, and I've been working out here over 15 years now. We've almost finished felling operations in this concession. They're felling the last couple of trees, and once we leave and the last logs are skidded out, the area will remain untouched now for decades. So this is it. This is how the forest looks after operations have been completed.
So I'm Dr. Jake Bicknell from the University of Kent. Over about 20 years I've been doing research in Guyana, understanding how biodiversity respond to different disturbances in tropical forests, and with a particular emphasis on forestry. So what we do is you compare these logged areas using reduced impact logging with primary forests, so those that have suffered from no disturbance at all. And when we look at reduced impact logging versus primary forests, we actually find that there's not very much difference in the biodiversity. So what this means is that reduced impact logging is actually having exactly what it says. It's having that reduced impact, but we almost can't detect any impact on the biodiversity. And it's really good news that forestry can actually sort of have its cake and eat it, if you like. The process begins with walking the forest and identifying and mapping the commercial trees that we will come back and harvest. These commercial species that become mapped, they have to meet certain criteria. You can't fell anything on too steep a slope. You can't fell too close to the creeks to maintain riparian zones. You can't fell trees that are too small, so you have to be over 35 centimetres in diameter. And you have to maintain the proximity rules, so you can't fell trees that are too close to each other. This avoids creating too big a gap in the canopy.
Yeah, my name is Anthony. I love to cut in logs. I work in the forest most of my time. I spend in the forest. I enjoy it. Yeah, well, we try not to break down and like to damage other trees, right? We try to see the clearest spot that we could put it, right? Because most trees damage, destroying the forest like that.
The permitted annual allowable cut is calculated at 20 metres cubed per hectare, which in real terms is about 2 or 3 trees per the size of a football field. Once the trees have been identified, which direction they are felled is decided by a combination of factors You would drop a tree in line to make it the easiest to extract it towards the road, and also to make sure you're minimising damage to any other of the surrounding canopy.
When you go to a tree now, you walk around it, you check it, you look up, you see the head of the trees. There's where you make there's where you cut the cape. Yeah, well, you know, after time, you're working, you get the skills of it. It's a skills all about, you know. It's a skills.
People generally think of logging as actual clear felling, complete habitat, disturbance and completely wiped out. But actually that's not what we mean with logging or with the word forestry. We can mean just taking a few trees out.
One of the really exciting things about tropical forestry is during forest operations, all you're really doing is replicating what would happen in the wild, but you're speeding it up. So in the wild, a tree will get to a certain age, then start to rot, and then eventually fall over and die. And that falling over is what encourages new growth in the forest. And as tropical foresters, when we're coming in and we're taking a tree here, a tree there, creating small gaps in the canopy, all we're doing is recreating what would happen in nature, but speeding it up. And so once you take that log out, like this one here, once you fell it, you create a gap in the canopy. And then that gap allows light to come down, and then you've got the whole next generation waiting to go into that light. But what is key in Guyana, and they're very good at, is not creating too big a gap. If you have too big a gap, then too much sun gets down and the seedlings get burnt out. So here, it's a good sized gap. We've got one tree down, there's another stump about 15 yards that way, and that's it. So you've got a gap for the next generation to come in.
So when you see those low levels of disturbance that you see under reduced impact logging, you actually find that sometimes you get more species and higher abundance of those species, so more animals. Because a tropical forest is dense, dark in the understory. So increasing a little bit of light actually can be a good thing. And this is seen in the UK as well. Long established conservation programs are actually often opening up woodlands and forests to bring in more biodiversity.
I'm James Singh with the Guyana Forestry Commission. When we fell trees from the forest, natural regeneration replaces what has been taken out. And when we operate on a 60-year cycle, what we mean is that we divide the productive forest into 60 parcels, and every year we focus on 1/60th. In the second year, they leave that forest part and go over to the second block. So at the end of 60 years, they come back to block number 1, and what was taken out would have been regenerated. If we look at the regeneration where we did harvesting, and even 1 year after, the canopy was closed again. That is because it's working.
It's not wrong here. The species of tree what they cut in is not wrong here, so we just leave it like this. Remember when you cut everything down, You know, and we don't have nothing to work next 10 years. We don't have nothing to work. Everybody follow the rules and it will go smooth and all right. The work will be going.
Sustainability is not rocket science, right? It's not a modern thing. You know, sustainability is, for a forest at its key, is not taking out more than grows. And so what the Guyanese have done very well is they worked out what their growth rates were on average and then worked out their felling cycle. And then through the international practices of reduced impact logging, they employ that within the forests. And so they're not taking huge volumes. They're very sensible about how they're operating and felling the forest to reduce impact. And it works here in Guyana.
Another thing I want to mention is that we have done satellite imagery of the entire country, and the deforestation rate for 2020 was 0.052%, which is probably the lowest in the world.
The Guyanese have a very good traceability system based around stump tags and log tags. After inventory and when they come to log, the GFC issue logging tags to the forest operators. So every tree that is felled, one tag goes on the stump and another goes on the log with the same corresponding number. That tag stays with the log as it goes through the system on trucking notes into the sawmill and once it's cut. And so you can take a sawn log in our yard in Scotland and trace it back to the stump to prove beyond any reasonable doubt where the log has come from.
Guyana has more forests per person than pretty much anywhere else in the world, and most of that forest is what we call primary forest, and so has not suffered much disturbance. Even where you see logging in Guyana, that is very much still classified as forest because a few years after that logging it looks the same as primary forest. It's basically some of the most pristine forests in the world.
86% of Guyana is covered in forests. Our forest is probably the size of the United Kingdom. So it's a huge rainforest that can actually deliver quite a bit of services to the world, especially in the whole context of climate change and carbon emission. I'm Vikram Bharat, Minister of Natural Resources in Guyana, South America. Guyana Forest has we have 18 million hectares of forests. And you can imagine the capacity it has to hold carbon. I think it's almost 19 gigaton, the capacity. We're hoping that this would lead now towards Guyana marketing its carbon credits or putting our carbon credits on the market.
All Guyanese governments have placed tremendous importance on the integrity of our forest resources. And the reason is that we value the forest tremendously for its timber values and non-timber values.
We have never reached 50% of our allowable cut. So when we speak about increasing production in the forestry sector, we are doing so in keeping with our responsibility to keeping our deforestation rate to a very, very low level. We have probably one of the best forest management systems in the world. There is no clear felling in Guyana, I can guarantee you that, because we have a very robust monitoring system. We have 33 stations located in interior regions. Checks are done, stump inspection are done on almost on a regular basis. So I can guarantee you there is no clear felling at all in our forests.
The Guyanese rainforests are fundamental for the world in keeping biodiversity on the ground, but they're also massively important within the economic situation within Guyana, especially in the rural areas away from Georgetown, where there's not huge employment. So people working in the forest are bringing in a wage, supporting a rural family, which then leads to rural development, and it gives more options out with the main cities and towns for the Guyanese.
Oh, well, I'm pleased to say, well, the work that I'm doing, I'm pleased with it. Yeah, I know a lot about it. I got a lot of idea about it. You have to come in the jungle, you have to come in the forest to fell trees. The city, you don't have trees and everything. Yeah, so when you come in the forest, when you come in the forest, at least there's your work.
As a company, Gilmour and Aitken will always try and buy sawn product first. We believe in making sure that jobs stay in country, and if timber's processed in country, then it provides more employment and a more economic benefit to the country as opposed to just taking out logs. And so the presence of sawmills and value-adding operations in country, again, add another level of economic development to the more rural areas within Guyana.
I think tropical timber has historically suffered from a bad PR, and let's not beat about the bush. There are still very bad tropical timber extraction techniques and forestry concessions. But now increasingly, over the last 20 years, we're seeing some really good ones as well. And they completely change that storyline, because it means we're going from something that could lead to disturbance and trashing that forest to actually something that really values that forest and means that there is value in keeping that forest standing.
That's one of my hobby, come in the bush, spend some time, throw some tree. Yeah, that is it. I love that. Yeah.
So even the smallest school child recognizes that the forest is important. It is obviously a home for the indigenous peoples, and we intend to keep it that way.